ready? I guess that's a yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, well, we're gonna call the meeting to order for the Town Council meeting, Town of Kensington, for Monday, March 8th, 2021. Okay, so time for a moment of silence. I have some, there's some good news that I just would like to announce. It's a little old news, but I was talking to Paul Sexton, and he let me know that Tommy Rodriguez, a former council member, and his wife Katie had a baby girl in December named Alice. So congratulations to Tommy. They moved just outside of town. They're near Oakland Terrace on Pliers Mill. So congratulations to them. So is there anyone we should keep in our thoughts and prayers? No? Okay, well, if we can just bow our head for a moment. Okay, thank you very much. Next up on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. I know we had a little back and forth on some editing, but I think the version that Susan sent out was good. So are there any other edits that the council wants to offer, or I can get a motion?
I move to approve the minutes from February's town council meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. I apologize. I mentioned it to the council, but for those who've now joined us, Council Member Hill Zayat is unable to attend this evening. She has a personal matter that she has to attend to. So, okay, so let's move on from the town council, from the mayor and the town council. Number one, Matt, do you want to introduce that?
Matt, you're on mute.
Matt.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Megan is not here yet, the architect for 10112.
Okay.
But Larry Hoffman is here, so can we skip to number 2?
Sure.
Well, I'm missing my better half. Let me call Michael now.
He's here. I'm letting him in right now.
Okay.
Michael's here.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and start with number 2 then.
Michael, I think we're up. You're on.
He's on mute.
I'm here.
There we
Sorry.
go.
Good. Sorry about that. I'm here representing the ownership group. And what I wanted to say is you can see we spent quite a bit of time. We have an exciting project, and we request a variance from the 10 by 10 limitation so that we can respond to the Kensington community by attracting and providing for the best uses in the location. We all know that COVID has damaged in many respects the retail community. We want to attract the best retail businesses, and we need to be able to publicize that opportunity. We're ready and willing to build a very attractive center, and we want a quality mix. But we need, in order to give back to the community and bring in the kind of uses that would, the diversified uses that will benefit all of us, we need adequate signage, because as Larry will explain, there are limitations in being able to see the signs. And we know that it's very important for potential tenants to see those signs, see the sign, and therefore contact us. And we're doing very well, but we need to continue to do well as we go through this process. So I appreciate your support. I'll turn it over to Larry now, and then I can finish with some words at the end.
Thank you, Michael. To clarify, it's a 10 square foot limitation, 2x5, for that's what the requirement is. So when I do a sign request, I send it to my marketing department, and the first thing they want to know is, where are you going to put a sign? Where do you want it to be seen from? And so on and so on. So they do an analysis that graphic designers have that show what font size that will be required for those distances. And then they figure out how they can, what size sign I will need and what to get all that information on there. So we put together an exhibit, basically exhibit A, B, and C, show the probable locations a driver might view the sign, and the optimal distances for viewing. The first one, exhibit A, shows southbound on Connecticut. All three exhibits do show what if we were to use, and I apologize if it's a county restriction or a Kensington restriction. I think we put county, but I believe it's a Kensington restriction. If we use the Kensington restriction of a 10 square foot sign, if we did a 1x10 or a 2x10, a 2x10 would be the dark green. The 1x10 would be the kind of bluish interior circle. Those would be the distances that you could see that sign. As you can see that you don't even get to the second lane on Connecticut Avenue going north, and you pretty much can see it from the sidewalk on Pliers Mill. If you're across the street on Connecticut going southbound, you would the best legibility would be a 26-inch. Our current sign has an 11-inch for the phone number, which is obviously the most important font. If you go to exhibit B, this one shows on Pliers Mill across the street, and that's 216 feet. That would, the optimal size would be a 21-inch. And again, that's, twice, the optimal size is twice the size of what our, about a little bit less than twice the size of our current lettering. And then exhibit C will show northbound, and the left lane northbound, which would be about 175 feet, and optimal size there is 17 and a half feet. And again, you can see in the bottom of that screen what the legibility would be of a 2x5. You would have to have a almost a 22-inch letter. So if you go to the next page, this is what your sign, the sign would look like if we did a 2x5 on the northbound side. And the problem is that we have to be within 5 feet of the building. It's all concrete, so there's really no place on the building to put it. So we would have to either be farther off the street, and or we have to do something on that board up there, on the pylon. We don't see many options, and we're open to suggestions. I recognize it's a sore subject because this is the property that had that ugly sign up that you can actually still see in the Google shot. We like to think our banner looks a lot better and presents a lot better, and hopefully you see that as well. The last page shows the what it looks like, and what what the sizes are of the fonts. Give you an idea of what we did. Our goal is obviously to put this out on the street so people can see it and we can get the best tenants possible. You know, we are working with some really cool concepts. One guy who was in town visiting his family is taking down a franchise from a South Beach taqueria, and he would not have known about this property otherwise. And he happened to be driving by and immediately called. You know, it's very, very important to what we do. And we're, you know, again, to try to make it better so we're not just putting in national chains who most of the brokers we're working with, and that's who knows about the site. Michael, I turn the ball back to you.
Well, unless there's some questions, I think, Larry, you've done a fine job in explaining it. It's really very simple. I mean, we need adequate signage so we can do the best for the community. We're not going to have an enormous amount of space, so we want to be very selective with the quality of the tenants that we bring in. And so far, we've had, I would say, considerable traction, and I'm very excited about it. So we want to be able to bring this home. And, you know, there are some tenants, just so you understand, there are some tenants that will not be willing to sign letters of intent or leases now or this year, because they will perk up as we get closer to the completion of the construction. So we need that sign. We need to show people what the project is going to look like and stand for. And we are intentionally, we've got first-class architects and engineer, and we are doing, I think, a quality job. So it'll be a win-win for everybody. We ask you for your support.
Council, do you all have any questions?
I guess just to help add it to the record, just so there's not confusion from the public. Michael, this project has not yet been before the town's development review board. I know you and Larry Hoffman are talking about some very interesting concepts. I don't want to give people the idea that they've missed a meeting. But I did have a conversation with you Friday just to see, are you close? And what you indicated to me was you should be ready hopefully this week to come and schedule that DRB for later in the month of March. Are we still on the same timetable?
Absolutely. The plan is to schedule a meeting later this week, and that would depend upon your schedule. We'd be ready to go as soon as you could include us, give us a time slot.
Okay. And then Larry, just out of curiosity, I mean, because we've heard this from other property owners, the billboard is one mechanism that you all are using to market this property. Just for the benefit of others, you know, this is your, you know, profession. What else is H&R doing to market this property other than just the billboard?
It's a multi-prong approach. We have an email blast list that goes to the brokerage community. So we have a couple thousand people on that list. So we send out flyers to them. And then it's really kind of a target approach, which is probably the most successful of all three, besides the sign, is putting together a list of people who we really want. Because we have a project here that is very desirable, and it's not, we don't need to do, I hope I don't offend anybody, if anybody's a Subway franchisee or something like that, we don't need to do that kind of concept. We feel like we can take this up a notch or two and get really cool concepts. So we're rifling that and targeting those people specifically. And going out of state to do it, you know, what concepts we see in other core urban markets.
Nate
Thank
or
you.
Darren, you have any comments?
No, I guess I have a few. I hear your reasons for wanting a sign that size, but those reasons are going to exist for a new tenant who wants to attract business to his or her business, and they're going to arise again whenever you have a vacancy. And
No,
so
this
I'd be
is a leasing sign. So the building, when it's built, will be built obviously to the road, and then they could put a sign. They'll have a sign ban on their front of their space. They won't have the same limitations I have.
okay. So the problem is leasing this up as a new
Yeah.
unbuilt development.
Right.
Because I don't want to do something today that sort of prejudices us in the future as far as, hey, because 10 square feet wasn't adequate for the lease up, it's not adequate for reletting a space.
Oh, no, I mean, first of all, when the building is up, our signs will be in a window, and they'll be, they're relatively small. They're just paper signs.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no, no, not at all. No.
And we just passed in town a new set of limited duration signs, and here we are, kind of one of the first ones out of the box looking at a variance for it. And so that causes me some concern. And I guess I would like to sort of know what happened here, that we went from, passing a new ordinance, and now we, did maybe level with us, did you just order the banner and now you need to fix it by getting a variance?
We have signs all over the county, all over the state, and it never occurred to me that there was a local ordinance that would prohibit something like this. No, because we don't really have that. We don't have that problem anymore. So it
and
is,
then it's the variance.
it is my bad. I mean, we put up a sign, and I didn't check with the jurisdiction, and I take responsibility for that. What I'm saying is, the sign that would meet the criteria because of the physical configuration of the property, it wouldn't, you just couldn't see it. Or I would end up with a sign where you don't want it. You guys don't want something more than 5 feet off the property. So we just, this is the best result we could figure out how to put a sign on the property. I'm absolutely open to suggestions on something else. But if you're asking me what went wrong on with when Kensington made this decision, you have a one size fits all policy that it may not necessarily work. If like our graphic designer comes to me and says, what are you looking to do? And we go through the whole thing, and then she has a chart, which I apologize is on the last page of that slideshow, that will show you what where things can be seen. So they start doing measurements, and they start figuring out what's font sizes. If I had the shopping center across the street where Chipotle became available, I put a sign in the window, it could be seen from the street. It's not the end of the world. Or I could put a banner up that's right up on the road. I just don't have the luxury of that.
And one of the things that led us to enact our own limited duration sign ordinance was that we found that, particularly for multi-tenant developments, that the brokerage signs, they all seem to be the same shape. They're all, 2 panels that are at an angle, mounted on 3 legs, so that they comply with the size. They became permanent installations. And so you had temporary signs, which were meant for, I don't know, advertising mulch or something for a season. And then you'd have permanent signs that went through the permitting process. But then in this middle was a really amorphous phase of limited duration signs that, for all intents and purposes, were up permanently. And that bothered us, because it seemed like these days spaces were filled with online, capabilities. And I wasn't sure how much use, the actual drive-by visualization of the sign caused. So that's sort of the history of how we got to the signage. And then I guess just let me finish now. I welcome your response. The other part of our ordinance limits these limited duration signs to 60 days. Matt, you can correct me. It might be 90. I can't remember if it's 60 or 90, but
It's 60 days, and you can have 4 signs within a calendar year, but the signs have to be different. They cannot be exactly
Right.
the same.
So I guess my question for you is, does your variance request also seek a variance from the 60-day limit on the sign being up?
Well, that's effectively what I'm asking for, because I'm allowed to have this sign for another couple of weeks. Then we have to come up with a plan B. I just don't know what that plan B is.
So there are two infirmities of the sign. The first is that it's too big, and the second is that you want it for longer than our code allows. Is that correct?
No, it's not too big. Matt, correct me if I'm wrong. It's not too big for the time being, but in 2 weeks it's too big. In 2 weeks, it all of a sudden violates the policy.
That's correct. So our limited duration banner doesn't allow a sign more than 50 square feet. So it's okay within the 60-day period. The issue would be going forward. If he wants it more than 60 days, he would need a 10 square foot sign within 5 feet of the face of the building.
Okay.
So
right.
to kind of address your long-term problem, we've had properties where they're, in neighborhoods that are nicer, where the town is concerned about. Well, I mean, the towns are concerned about these signs exactly like you are.
I was chuckling at neighborhoods that are nicer.
No, this is like in some areas, people don't. The towns just don't care. I mean, they just don't. And we've had to, in their more urban settings, we've had to come up with very creative signs that we put up that are, we have one that kind of goes in a little tree area that it says property owned by and leased by, and it's really small, and you kind of see it as you're leaving the parking lot, because there really is no pylon sign or any place to put a leasing sign. And we're happy to do that kind of thing once the property is up and going. And so we're very tasteful, but from the real issue is now until demolition, how do you get the word out? And it's it's a tough predicament. I recognize the issue you guys have, and I know what you're trying to achieve. But how do we get a sign we can see is really what it comes down to.
All right, and I'll let others ask a question. I just one more,
Sure.
I think.
Thank you.
And that is that you're talking now about potentially signing letters of intent with tenants, and I don't know if you've signed any at this point.
No.
Okay, and so I could appreciate that. Maybe you're trying to get people to commit now for the space. And if you were to get to the point where the entire, we haven't even seen this proposal yet, but let's say that you get to a proposal that you're going to file with the county and go before the DRB. If you get to the point where you've got letters of intent for the entire space, would you pull the sign down at that point?
Let me answer that, Darren.
Sure.
I think the best plan would be if we have some really outstanding tenants early on to enter into letters of intent, but not to lease all the space now. I mean, my reaction, this is a business decision. I think a good part of the property needs to be withheld from leasing until we get into the construction side, because Larry will tell you that there are important tenants who will not sign a letter of intent today for, let's say, you know better than me, mid-2022, when the space would be really available. They're not going to sign today, and they're important to the overall community. They may sign a letter of intent next March or April, when they can see the completion of the construction and they can move in. So it makes sense on balance not to do 100%. Assuming we could, let's say we had an overflow of applications, so to speak. In my view, it would not make sense to lock it up today. We'll be better off waiting because we'll get certain uses that we otherwise can't get. Maybe that's a better answer. We haven't signed, answer your question, we haven't signed any letters of intent yet.
Okay, thank you.
So is the variance to allow this sign almost indefinitely? I mean,
Well,
it's not
be-
asking for another 60 days. It's asking maybe for for 6 months, right?
Yeah, at least, I would say at least. I'm not looking to, try to sneak anything in here. No, the answer is 100% yes. The demolition, well, it's in your hands. I mean, if you guys gave us approvals on the whole project tomorrow, I mean, we could start demolition and I'll take the sign down right away.
Wow, the county is the one that would be holding you up, not the town. So.
I'm teasing.
Yeah.
But as soon as we start demolition, obviously the sign would go down. Yeah, pulling it down would be, I don't want to call it devastating because that'd be a little melodramatic, but it would really, really hamper the leasing ability. People would think the project was pulled, that something happened, they're not getting their zoning, they're not, that this thing is just not happening. And that's not
good. Put it in the windows.
They're just tenant.
Hmm.
I mean, you would kill his business, and the tenant seems like the community loves him. I mean, he's it's a neat concept. It's obviously not something everybody wants long term, but he's obviously well supported. But I don't think you want to do that.
I like Jim. So
yeah.
Connor, do you have another question?
Yeah, Larry and Michael, realizing we haven't seen it yet, for those who are just joining us, the DRB hasn't reviewed it yet. To my knowledge, it hasn't even gone to planning yet, but it's coming soon. But you keep talking about you'd like, in an ideal world, to have this sign up until demolition of the current structure. In a best case, worst case scenario, what sense do you have of when demolition might be? Not setting anything in stone, but are we talking, is it 6 months? Is it a year?
Here's how I can answer that question. I was thinking about today. I thought it would make sense to meet with the DRB first and know that we have support. And then we would have to go back to Park and Planning, I would think. And at that point, I want to consult with Bill Commoners and find out, I'm assuming we're going to be treated favorably, and then find out how we can move the process expeditiously. So, because we have a real serious issue with some of the important tenants who want to drop dead date. And so if we need to know when we're going to be able to finish the construction, otherwise we can lose some excellent tenants, at least based upon my understanding of the negotiations. So, I mean, I need more guidance on the timing, and I expect to get that within the next 2 weeks. To also, let me say, we're prepared to, if we get approvals, to try our best to move the process as quickly as possible, because every day, in a way, hurts us.
Okay. Council, do you have any other questions before I open it up? The public has a question. Does anyone in the audience have a question? Not seeing hands, not in the,
Joe Campbell, Tracy.
where's his hand? I'm missing Joe. Oh, there he is.
It,
You moved around, you were down there, and now you're up in the corner.
Hey, it's it's not my fault, you know. It's
Okay, go ahead, Joe.
the whimsy of Zoom.
I know.
Thank you, Mayor Furman. Interesting discussion, interesting questions. I was very glad to see that Councilmember Bartram recalled the lengthy discussions and negotiations that went into the sign ordinance, the revisions to the sign ordinance in the town. And in listening to all sides here, I don't see any compelling reason for the town to approve this variance request. It's especially since the defect to be addressed here is not due to the town, but due to the developers not heeding the town's regulations or being aware of them. And I think that we should ask better of people who are looking to develop this site. And so given all that, I don't see any strong reason for the council to approve this. Thanks, Mayor Furman.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Is there anybody else? Don't see anybody with a hand up. All right, council, what would you like to do?
Do we typically leave the record open to, until right before the next meeting and then have a resolution available?
We can. I mean, we need some direction to put together a resolution for the April meeting.
Well,
Well,
you only
can
have a
we-
couple more weeks, I think, right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, they have until April 1st because we approved the permit on February 1st. So that would be their 60 days within the existing limited sign duration.
Matt, can you summarize what the specific variance request is?
So they're limited. When we passed the new sign ordinance last year, we were having an issue with limited duration signs, specifically on the commercial side, real estate. What the new regulations did was it would limit a banner, a sign, a limited duration sign to 60 days and would allow you to have 4 signs per year. The example we would give is like Stroh Snyder's Hardware could have a spring, fall, winter, summer banner. The intent was not to have a similar sign or the same sign to be more than 60 days. But that's what the variance process is for. That's why the variance is written into the code to allow situations for the council to evaluate on a case-by-case basis. So what the applicant is asking for, it sounds like at least 6 months on this sign. So,
Maybe, can I make a quick suggestion then? So I heard, I believe it was Michael say that they'd have more information in 2 weeks or so, hopefully, on the timing for demolition. Is it possible to come back and with an affirmative date, like a sunset for when the variance would expire? Like we would put a 6-month limit on it, just so it's not there in perpetuity. I think that could address our concerns.
I think it's really Larry's issue on our behalf, but I think we can come up with a reasonable compromise that meets your concerns. As everyone on this team knows that I've spoken to, the owners want to do the right thing. We are not here for to basically have challenges. I'm sorry, Joe pointed out that, we made a mistake initially. I accept that. We don't want to make any mistakes. And we want to do whatever we do, we want to satisfy you. So we can come, but we can figure out a solution.
Yeah, I'm confident that once you see the plan, that it's not going to be just another typical strip center with a bunch of field parking in front and with your typical suburban architecture. I think once you see it, you're going to be excited about it, and I'm thinking in 6 months, if we need to ask for some help, I think, based upon what we're doing, you'll be happy to help us. I hope. And because look, I have very good friends who live in Kensington. We go to the farmers market all the time. I understand this market. I know what this market's going to want. I'm very excited about this project, and I think we're going to bring some really fun tenants to the project. So
Well, I think we all want to see a successful project. I mean, that property, even when it was a gas station, has just been kind of an eyesore for, well, as long as I've lived here 40 years, and it's been an eyesore for 40 years. And I do prefer Hawkins being there rather than the property being empty. It was an actual improvement having Hawkins there, at least temporarily, just to see activity. So, which has been helpful, but I don't think that's what we want to look at for the next, 10 years. So, am I hearing a motion to grant at least an extension until we can have a further discussion? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, I would move that we grant an extension through, pulling up my calendar, April 13th. Well, let's say April 14th, to allow the council to take up a resolution in the April meeting.
Okay. Yeah, the meeting's on the 12th, but we're still working on that date. So I think the 14th would be good.
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so you all have gotten at least an extension, and we'll work on, meet with you again and then work on a resolution to address this at the April meeting.
Thank you very much. And looking forward to working with you all to get a great project underway.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you
care.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, Matt, is number 1 here?
Yeah, Megan is still not on the call.
Okay,
I'm not sure what's going on there. Lindsay Field is here. She is here to discuss Noyes Children's Library. I don't want to jump around too much, but
okay, that's, which one is, that is from the town manager, number 2?
correct. So Lindsay Field can discuss the proposed encroachments that Noyes Children's Library is requesting. If you don't mind jumping ahead.
No, I don't mind. Let's go ahead and do number 2 from the town manager and the staff. Lindsay, are you there? You're up.
Yes, I am. I'm only on phone though, so
That's fine.
I can't really point to the drawings or anything, but other than that, I'm here.
Okay, well, Matt can start the discussion, and then if we have any questions, you'll be there to help us answer them.
Yes, that's great.
Okay.
Sure. So Lindsay and the Noyes Children's Library Foundation approached the town a few years ago when they began their project to expand the library. And one of the issues that came about was encroachments into the town's right-of-way. Specifically, there's some railing and then there's some mechanical equipment. It's highlighted in yellow in the packets. And for those of you that are looking at the agenda and documents, it's highlighted in yellow as well. County DPS is requesting a letter from the town stating that the encroachments within our right-of-way are acceptable. And we just kind of need the council to okay this before we were to proceed. So.
Council, do you have any questions?
So on the drawing with the yellow highlighting, is what's just to the east of that looks like a brick walkway, is that the sidewalk?
Yes.
So this would not impact pedestrians. It just happens that we own right up to, near the building.
Right.
Okay,
So
thank
the
you.
property line is actually the east face of the building, which is the rear of the building.
Right.
It's really right on line with that chimney. So there's no space for the mechanical equipment. And so we were hoping that we would be able to get a request for encroachment.
Okay.
Connor,
Lindsay,
you are,
yeah, Lindsay, this is Connor. Looking at this, there's no other area of the property where the mechanical can go based on the design and the redesign and access that you guys are trying to design.
That's right. With the accessible pathways to the front of the building and up to the ramp and the new elevator on the north side, we already have 2 small air conditioning condensing units near the elevator, but the larger ones and the generator, which are required by the county, have to go near the chimney on the rear face.
Okay. And then the railing one to the kind of northwest corner of the property, there's a railing that already exists there. Is this an extension of that railing, or are you replacing the railing?
This is actually a new path and extension railing. It's an ADA, particular slope that comes down to the lower patio area, and the curve has to be a certain size, and everything is very
the rate of decline and all that. Yep.
That's right.
Okay. That's all I have.
Any questions?
I had one more, just to pick up where Darren was asking about the sidewalk. If I read the materials correctly, it's adding a sidewalk, right?
We're adding sidewalks for accessibility issues in terms of being able to land on a sidewalk instead of the grass on the east face. The east road that's Montgomery does not have sidewalks currently in that area.
Okay.
Right, so that's great. And then I was just curious, in that same sentence in the report, it mentioned that it's going to improve vehicular traffic too, or vehicular access. I just didn't understand. That's the only thing I didn't understand from that. What's the logic?
I'm not. Can you read a little bit of it? I'm not.
Sure. Yeah, it says the encroachments to the rights of way do not adversely impact vehicular or pedestrian access. In fact, the proposed plan improves both. And I just didn't understand the reference to vehicular. That's all.
I'm not sure if there's an increased vehicular, path. It's more that the circulation around the property will be more accessible and easier to, get to the front and the rear of the building and around.
Okay.
It's not specific to vehicular traffic.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks very much.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, council, if you don't have any other questions, I'll ask the audience if they have a question. Does anyone have a question in the audience regarding this issue? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands, and everybody's picture seems to be standing still, so I don't think I'm missing anybody. Matt, what do you need us to do?
So Lindsay provided us with a draft letter. We'll go ahead and just tailor it a little bit with support of the encroachments into the right of way. So just a motion to draft a letter would be fine.
Okay. Do I have a motion to draft a letter in support?
I'll make a motion to draft.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Go ahead. I'll make a motion to draft the letter in support.
Second it.
Second.
There we go.
Oh, I give no credit.
Okay, all those in favor, you can vote now, Connor. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lindsay.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so let's go back to page 1. Megan is still missing, is that correct? Okay, I hope she didn't get the dates wrong. Would she have gotten the dates wrong?
Well, I mean, I could do the variance for them, but maybe we can wait towards the end in case they show up.
Well, yeah, just in case there's something that there's a reason.
Questions, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, let's go down then to number 3, the Thrive 2050. Connor?
You want me to bring in my PowerPoint now?
No.
I got criticized for having a PowerPoint. No, this is just a continuing update because Thrive 2050, as a real quick reminder, this is the planning board's update to the county's general plan for redevelopment. It is the plan by which all sector and master plans are tied to. The current general plan was drafted in 1964, last updated in 1993. They are looking to update it and make it a plan for the next 30 years, thus the moniker 2050. Obviously important because any updates to the Kensington sector plan, should the Thrive 2050 be passed, would be tied to Thrive 2050. The update at this time, though, is so Thrive continues to be reviewed by the planning board, but they are doing it chapter by chapter. It's made the review of the overall plan rather disjointed, and the edits are fairly significant from the original plan, which was released in October of 2020, and which, you know, all of the amount of public review that was done by planning board at that time for that version of the plan, well, you know, good at the time, I hate to say, in my opinion, is kind of moot, because the plan has changed so significantly that one can't really take credit for that part of the public process. They are redrafting the plan chapter by chapter, reviewing it with very little time for public review, public input, public record. So there's a coalition that I mentioned last month of 27, I think it might be 28 or 29 now, municipalities and community associations that have been deeply reviewing this plan and, you know, sending public comment to the planning board, to county council members about areas of concern, areas for improvement. But most recently, and in the packet tonight, is a 2-page letter that was drafted amongst all of these, the coalition of community municipalities and associations, that highlights a number of deficiencies in the process, the review process that the county planning is going through, and requesting that the county planning board and the county council delay the review of Thrive 2050. Right now, per their schedule, the intent was to get Thrive 2050 to the county council by April of this year. They really have until October of 2021 to take land use issues before the county council. And what we're asking is for them to use all of that time, that they're, you know, the quality of the plan, the public review process should outweigh an artificial calendar date that was set months ago. So ironically, you know, this was spurred not only by 2050, but then we started hearing talk about a zoning text amendment from Councilmember Will Jawando. And just today, I guess there was another zoning text amendment proposal put forth by Councilmember Hucker and Councilmember Reamer.
I think it was just Councilmember Reamer, Hucker, because he's president.
As a president, okay. So Councilmember Reamer put together another ZTA asking for one to be drafted, essentially to be reviewed by the planning board around missing middle housing, which is a central concept to Thrive. So this update, the purpose of this update for the council is you have the draft letter in front of you. The coalition is looking to transmit that letter, but they want to do it with as many signatories as possible. I would like to recommend that the town sign on under the mayor's signature about our concerns about process, and that we be part of this letter moving forward.
Can I make a quick comment?
Yes, please.
No, so I just wanted to thank you, Connor, and appreciate all the background and constant updates. I think you've kept everybody well briefed on this. I had one question. I was reading the letter earlier that you had made some suggestions, I think, to the letter earlier, right? And one of them was about the date you just referenced, to delay it to not an election year. I was confused when I read the letter first because it said October 31st, 2022, and it still does, but you referenced 2021.
Yep.
So can you explain that, please?
It should be 2022.
So we're asking them to delay it by a year and a half?
Let me just, I believe that, yes, well, yes.
Okay.
So, and the point, I mean, the point is there is significant time to continue reviewing this plan. It just seems that the appetite, at least at the moment, from the planning board and the county council is to, they'd set a timetable and they are working to keep that timetable, even though the plan has changed significantly.
Right. And I fully agree. I think it's something we should support. I just wanted to make sure that we had our window of opportunity defined correctly, because I didn't, you referenced that it was because of an election year, which would be, it should be 2020, October 2021 to 22, right? So we would have to have this done by, we would have to have it, the process play out by this October, no?
Well, I think the election year is the county council. Is that it's
Correct.
their election year.
Correct.
Right, and their
Yeah.
election year probably starts in November 2021, right? Because it's a 2022 October or November 2022 election, isn't it? I see John Gerson shaking his head no. I thought that they're all up in 2022.
John, you would know. You can unmute and just spout that out. I believe it's November 2022, isn't that correct?
Yeah.
That's when they're elected, and then they take office the first Monday in December of 2022, right?
Right.
So the election year is the year leading up to that, right?
2022. So the general election is in November of 2022,
Right. They'd have a primary in June.
right?
Yeah, but I'm just trying to understand, when would they have a moratorium for dealing with land use issues? That's the question. What is it defined as an election year?
Right. Hold on. I don't want to be wrong because I was not the drafter of the letter.
Because I think having 6 months versus having like a year and a half, it's different, just to know how for the general public who wants to comment on it, how quickly we need to mobilize.
Well, what they're trying to do too is that they're trying to have this council approve it, not a new council coming in. So that's because then they'll want to start all over again. So that's part of the reason why they want to do it when this council is still sitting. But I would think that they could still do that.
Yeah.
It
But
has,
anyway, while Connor looks at that,
Yep.
Again,
It has
just
everything
offer
to do-
my support for this. I think it's very well drafted. I think it's a logical reason to ask for delaying. So thank you.
John, what did you want to finish saying?
no, I was just going to try and clarify in response to Nate's question, and the reason for the fast track on the part of some council members is because indeed they are wanting it to be a defining issue before the primary election in 2022.
Mhm.
So that's, that's the dynamic that's at play. It's not about there being embargoed before the election. It's about their trying to define.
They want to run on it.
Yeah, they're trying to define themselves. Right.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Sorry.
Well, I think the biggest problem though is they're rushing this, and they are throwing every ZTA at us in order to run as a running issue. And it's frustrating for all of us. These ETAs are just flying at us faster than we can even process them. So,
And I'm emailing the coalition. They are saying they want to get it done with the council that is sitting now. So 2022, thanks for that, Nate. And so to Tracy's point and to John's point, yes, what they don't want is we know there's going to be change on the county council because of term limits. And so what they don't want to do is get seated with a new council and then have to potentially educate, bring people up, and votes are shifting around.
Yeah. Okay. So is there do we need a motion to, or just a show of hands that we want to, I'm sorry, does anyone in the audience have a question regarding Thrive 2050 and what we're doing here? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. We have a consensus that we want to go ahead and sign on to this letter, correct? Hands?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
With that, if I can just take one more moment,
Sure.
Mayor Tracy, because you made a comment that I think it's not, I don't want to get myself in trouble. It's not on the agenda, but it's tangentially related, which is, just tonight, there's a new potential ZTA zoning text amendment that Councilmember Reamer is asking for the planning board to put a review together, staff report together around missing middle housing along bus rapid transit lines. And I agree with your comment of, there's all these ZTAs that are coming at municipalities, right? I mean, the county, but as the elected representatives for the town of Kensington that we're trying to review. And, we're trying to get an idea of what are the impacts of these, right? So to give people a reminder of some of the ZTAs over the last couple of years that have impact over the town, there was the moderately priced dwelling unit ZTA, which allows for commercial developments to gain additional mass, which can gain additional height if they are providing additional MPDUs above the county minimum. And so, the reality is that our sector plan height limits aren't the hard and fast height limits that we think they are. We learned that now through this, how these ZTA is written. Additional ones are accessory dwelling units, right? And so the idea behind an accessory dwelling unit is that you could build either a detached structure or make an attached structure, a basement, apartment above a garage, put an addition on your house with a separate entrance that could create a new housing unit. But, as much as we tried to talk about what is the impact of these ETAs, the process moved quickly. And, we don't have a mechanism right now to kind of formally look at that. And then, we have our abilities in our code, our ordinances to look at land use. So we have we talked about it, or we were going to talk about it, it's on the agenda, right? A variance for side yard setbacks. That's one of our tools as a town. But other municipalities have other tools that we have not adopted, right? So other municipalities look at the total lot coverage that can be built. They look at the total building envelope. They look at height restrictions in the residential areas. They look at front yard setbacks and rear yard setbacks. And these are things that I think there are lessons that can be learned from other jurisdictions that we don't necessarily have to stumble upon first, that we could be reviewing, and then the council could be taking up recommendations for ways to adapt our code. And so I'm not looking to formalize anything tonight. I just wanted to start a conversation on it. I think it would be worthwhile for the council or to put together some sort of committee to start looking at these issues and recommending potential changes to our ordinances, to have a little bit more control over land use.
Okay. No, I think that's a really good idea because, and I don't know whether it's because they're trying to get all this done before they leave office or what, but I think having, I think you said Chevy Chase, Town of Chevy Chase has a code committee.
Yeah, through this coalition, I've had a chance to talk with a number of jurisdictions. The Town of Chevy Chase has a committee somewhat akin to what we have for our development review board. They review the current projects, but then they have what they call their long range planning. And that committee's whole purpose is to look at zoning text amendments. They're the ones reviewing the Thrive 2050. They looked at the purple line and what are the impacts of purple line. They look at these long range plans, if 270 gets widened, if 495 get widened, those kind of things to try and determine what is the potential impact to their municipality. Likewise, and I keep saying this as part of the review of Thrive and some of these ETAs, hey, as written right now, the town of Kensington isn't within the crosshairs of the impact area, but a quick modification to a section or two to take the transit-oriented building envelope and expand it from Metro and Purple Line to Metro, Purple Line, and Mark, and all of a sudden the entire town is within the impact area. And so where we have the Development Review Board, and the Development Review Board has its purpose to look at projects being submitted for redevelopment within our CRT and CRN zones. We just don't have a mechanism, and it's not currently within the purview of the DRB to look at, say, our town codes and whether or not we want to, some things within the county's code, I think we might say are fine, but we adopt them by as like a pass down, a flow through. And as we learned on fences, because we didn't hard code things, when the county adjusted theirs and we weren't quick to adjust ours, it does create a momentary loophole. And we
Right.
saw a couple of fences go in that we didn't want to occur, but were permissible because we were allowing our code to just ride on top of the county's code. And we may want to look at recommendations of hard coding portions of the county or putting more restrictive codes in place, within the town.
Okay, well, let's, you think this is something that could wait until an organizational meeting in July?
Yes. I mean, I think yes, we can get there in July. I do think we were already looking at the code, and I think on a couple of past agendas, we've had a couple of issues that have come up that might be worthy of a quicker look. I mean, the bay window one, I've shared
I
comments.
think that's something we can handle.
Yeah. Individually, I think the council could take up those that are just immediate and pressing. But yes, I think it would be worth at the organizational meeting to develop a committee to review the code.
Okay, because I think there's the entire section in our charter or in our ordinances that needs to be relooked at. So that's something that I know Darren was very much of interest in that he and Matt and Sue Ellen could sit down and go through that pretty, well, won't be quick, but, maybe take a month or two to start, reviving that. Is that something you want to do, Darren? Or I know you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a project that's right around the corner for about 10 years now. So I'm happy to sort of look at overarching code revisions. And I agree that I think that a revision of kind of fixing the bay window problem that we've identified should not wait for that. Connor, I'm since you've been front and center on Thrive, I'm wondering your views on this. I know the municipalities have generally submitted group letters. I think there's something somewhat unique about municipalities that are along the MARC line, certainly in Montgomery County, that we all share a view that MARC is not metro. I think there are bus stops that have greater ridership than MARC lines. And so I'm wondering if you see a possibility of a coalition between Kensington and Washington Grove or Metropolitan Grove, and to basically say, look, we understand that MARC might expand, but until it offers bi-directional service and weekend service, we don't think that it should just be thrown in with the rest of mass transit. Because like I said, if you have bus lines with greater ridership than MARC, why not just throw all the bus lines in? So I guess that's just a possible second coalition that we might think about.
Yeah. And I spoke with one of the council members from Garrett Park previously, and listening to the concerns, I think they too would share that. They're pretty close to that 1 mile to Strathmore, but obviously you bring in MARC and they're well within the full envelope. And I think there's others too that have the same feeling. MARC is not metro. MARC is not purple line. MARC is, and so I agree. I think it would be worthwhile to begin a second coalition, as you called it, around that topic.
And this is not unprecedented. I mentioned to some of you that back in 2012, George Leventhal, who was on the county council at the time, got a ZTA passed that pulled MARC from, I think it was the parking calculator, ZTA 1206. And it was just a reflection that while it's a great service, and I think it's a really cool feature of Kensington and others, it just doesn't have the ridership that I think justifies some of the wholesale rewriting of zoning that the county is undertaking, at least not in its current shape.
Okay, well, why don't we, at this point, that Darren and Matt and Sue Ellen work on updating the code for not just the windows, but I know we're looking at the fence, adding 6-foot lattice in front of the front plane, because the county doesn't consider that a fence, but if you put enough together, it sure looks like a fence. So we want to get that update as well. So And there's some other issues, I think, with driveways, Matt said. So I think a good review and bring that back to the council would be good.
Okay.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's see, I still no Megan, is that correct? Okay, so we will keep on going. Let's see, Nate, I think you
it's-
are up next.
Yeah, okay. I also do not have a PowerPoint presentation this month, so I think we are free from that onslaught from last time. No, just a really quick update. So you all, no, not everybody, but many people who are on this call were in this meeting, were on the Zoom for last meeting, where we presented the findings from the pedestrian and bicycling access and safety working group, which there were about 13 recommendations. We also published them in the town journal, came out a couple days ago. One of the top two recommendations, and again, they weren't in any particular order for priority, but just in terms of immediacy, was to submit a grant request for the Transportation Land Use Connections Program of the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. And the deadline for that was actually today. And the working group led by Chris Zappi and Allison Derlin, Anne-Marie Turner also made a lot of contributions. We put together the application and actually were able to submit it last week with the strong endorsement, actually as the primary applicant, Montgomery County Department of Transportation. Sandy Brecker was very helpful with that. So we have a very strong letter of partnership on it. And then also Tracy and Matt were really helpful in rallying the support of several county council members. So we got a very strong endorsement letter by Andrew Friedson and also council members Albernaz and Glass. And I believe Councilmember Glass sits on the planning board. So I think it bodes well for the application. And just a quick summary, the application's title, they asked us to be very descriptive in it. It's like Title 101 faux pas, but it's very long. It's Connecticut Avenue Corridor Planning Study to Advance Pedestrian and Bicycling Access and Safety in Kensington. They asked for it, we gave it to them. But basically what it's trying to do is, for the first time ever, I think, take a pedestrian and bicycling and other alternative non-vehicular mobility perspective on that corridor, the Connecticut Avenue corridor as it runs through Kensington. And the secondary, I would say the secondary study area are the intersections of Knowles, Metropolitan, and University, and a couple of the other major intersections that come there. But basically trying to come up with an innovative, but we say practical and implementable set of solutions and alternatives that we can envision for how that space and that corridor can be made a pedestrian and bicycling priority, to reconnect the parts of town and also neighborhoods that are adjacent to us, like Kengar, to our services, to the town's businesses, to the town's transit, various points of transit that are not, again, necessarily vehicles. So that application went in. We'll see what happens. And again, the application is to get a planning study that will be done in a very, the idea is to do it in a very participatory way, bringing in the state, bringing in obviously the county and the town and residents to help to do that visioning. So we'll see. We find out in the next couple of months whether or not we will get that, but our fingers are crossed. And I think we had a really strong application. While on the topic, very quickly, I just wanted to also say that we had many of us participated in the MC.dot public hearing last week on the Kensington Parkway addition of the shoulder enhancements or shoulder improvements, where they're thinking about adding a bike lane and a pedestrian lane in Kensington Parkway in the unincorporated part of Kensington from Everett to Saul. And again, our report for the working group recommended that we provide, the town provides the complementary upgrades on our section of Kensington Parkway for whatever they decide. And I think it was really nice. There were a lot of our community that was there advocating for it, because there was some opposition from essentially mainly from the people who are directly there that have parking in that section, who are directly affected by it on the west side of Kensington Parkway. But I thought that there was a really good discussion. It started off, I would say my interpretation was, it started off with everyone kind of saying what their position was, but then a general sentiment. And Darren, I think your comment was really good in the hearing, or the public hearing or public meeting or whatever it was called, on just trying to come up with a solution that worked for everyone. So you can have some parking, but also have the enhancements of pedestrians and bicyclists. So I got the sense that they're going to try to get some sort of compromise that includes both. And they were out walking it. The gentleman who led it, Kyle, I'm forgetting his last name right now. It's
Lucas.
Yeah, Kyle Lucas. They walked it with some of the people who were really concerned with losing parking. They went and walked the area last Thursday. They're going to do a second walk through and show what they're thinking of where parking could be appropriate to balance those. So I know that part wasn't on the agenda, but I thought it'd be worthwhile giving that quick update, because many of the people who are on the working group and those in this meeting were also present in that call.
Okay. Did you want to mention the SHA upcoming meeting that you and I and Darren and Matt will be attending regarding University Boulevard?
Yes, thank you. So we're going to meet with SHA on Wednesday, and that meeting is to discuss what's called a road diet, which the primary point of discussion is a road diet, which again, this was something recommended in the report, piggybacking off of conversations that the town has had with SHA in the recent past, to essentially move from 3 lanes to 2 lanes as the University Connecticut Avenue split happens going north on University. That's where traffic is alleviated. There's never any need for more than 2 lanes there. And the idea would be if a road diet happens, you could add a separated sidewalk with a grass strip buffer, plus the bike lane that's envisioned there for the bicycling master plan for the county. So we're going to meet with them to discuss what they're thinking, because they've seemed very receptive to it. And I know that there are a couple of other things related to the working group's report that are pertinent to SHA that I will also bring up. But I know that Connor has mentioned the idea of talking speed limits with them. So it's going to hopefully be a fruitful discussion.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know if Connor has anything else to add. Sorry.
No, I my position on the 4-way stop and the RRFBs, which has taken us a number of years to get them to first come around to understanding the actual safety concern that we had, the time of day, the fact that we're, I get that SHA is the state highway administration, but we were trying to express the pedestrian issue at the time. So that's along Metropolitan. But my other one is, I would like to begin discussions of reducing the speed limit on Connecticut Avenue from 35 to 30, which is what has been done to Wisconsin Avenue. It's what has been done to Georgia Avenue. It's what has been done to parts of Veers Mill Road, in areas where they're trying to increase pedestrian safety, right, and get toward this Vision Zero concept. If we want to have a safer pedestrian and bike and non-vehicle experience through the town, it starts with speed, and Connecticut Avenue is a central part of that.
Darren, do you want to say anything? I know you've worked on pedestrian issues on University for a while, or been.
Look, I think the idea of narrowing, I've spent 24 years driving up University at that point, and that's where traffic opens up. It's crowded from, Washington Street up through the University Connecticut split. But once you're there, you don't need 3 lanes. And that's, just a real life observation that I think they will appreciate. And we have considered how to make the crossing at Perry across University safer for 5 to 10 years at this point, and giving pedestrians a shorter crossing distance is is a big part of that. So I think we'll work on that.
Okay, well, I think this is the SHA has agreed that they need a study. So this is not something that's going to happen right away, but the fact that they're willing to do it is a really good thing. So I think it's taken years and a lot of prodding and some pushing, and then I think it was Evan Glass's issue about the lane diets. Is that correct, Nate? I think they're the ones that were bringing that up, or?
Yeah, so Councilmember Glass held a forum on basically pedestrian bicycling prioritization about a month or a month and a half ago. And one of the issues that he mentioned in that was his discussions with SHA that would do a road diet in Wheaton on University Boulevard. So I inquired from Councilmember Glass, I have not yet heard a response, whether that is the same thing that we're talking about here coming right out of Kensington on University. So if not, I mean, it makes sense to just connect the two, right? But we'll get answers from SHA if we don't hear from Councilmember Glass.
Okay, well, we hope to, we'll have an update at our April meeting of how our meeting with SHA went on Wednesday. So good, thank you. Does anybody in the audience have any questions for Nate? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands, so, all right, good. Connor, do you have anything else to report, or are you good? Good. Darren, anything?
I'm good.
Okay, Darren, anything you want to report?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, I just have a couple little things. We did get contacted by Dennis McCurdy, wanted to know about doing the food trucks again. I think it was starting in April. Is that correct, Matt? Twice a month?
Correct. He was curious if we had any objections to starting food truck night for 2 sessions beginning in April. And I told him we'd ask the mayor and council. So
okay, we did do food truck last year. We didn't provide any seating, but it was pretty popular. I think everybody did their social distancing. Obviously not as popular as it was previously, but people came out, and I know they filled up Reinhardt Park and made a evening of it. So I don't see any problem with doing it. Everybody's good. No objections. Yeah. Okay. No. I was on a call with the county, and I mentioned, the fact that we were looking, thinking about the Labor Day parade and fall events, and they feel like they would have a better grasp of it in about 2 months when more people have gotten their virus, the shots, so the vaccines. So I think we can easily wait those 2 months. I know we're looking into the traffic stuff, which is what really takes a long time. And so they did suggest that, we could always throw ticketed events. And I just said, well, that would be really hard to do on a Labor Day parade. So, but so we'll see what happens. They admitted that the county is much more hesitant than a lot of other areas. So, if the state says 100, the county more than likely is going to say 50. I mean, that's just the way they've been working. So anyway, so we'll see what happens. The Greenscape Committee, we did meet last week, and so we'll be doing some more work in Clum Kennedy with doing some plantings and moving things around. That will be done in April. I've sent out the minutes to the committee to see if they have any questions or changes, and if I don't hear anything back, we'll get those posted on the website probably towards the end of the week. And I think that's about it. Oh, just for clarity, I know Connor said an RFB, for anybody who wants to know what that is, that's a rapid flashing beacon. So that they use for crosswalks. So, all right, so let's
Tracy, I just had a quick question. If it's, I didn't get a chance to say if I had anything else. It was just a
Okay.
question actually to Darren and Connor and the DRB process. I didn't know if, do you have an update on the flats at Knoll Station process and where they are in that? I'm just curious if, I haven't heard anything about it for a long time. Sorry if this is not the right time to ask it, but I just.
That's good.
I can handle it, Connor, unless
Yep.
you want to.
All
I mean,
yours.
basically, they submitted their package to planning staff. Planning staff has come back with a recommended approval with a list of conditions. And most of the conditions seem like they're manageable. So it would go to the planning board for approval. There are some outstanding issues, one of which you'll be interested in, Nate, obviously, which is the agreement to lead silver is not a condition of the planning board's approval because of the planning staff approval, because I mean, they already require green building. So that needs, I think the way that we're going to resolve that is that we're going to have that be a binding commitment between the town and the developer.
Okay.
And then, you know, the parking situation is fluid. You know, as proposed, the building is 75 apartments and 25 live work units. I know the developer would rather get rid of the requirement that he monitor and enforce the live work aspect of them and just go to the 100 apartments. And that has an impact of actually reducing the parking requirements for the building, which would mean that the potential public parking from that building would go up because fewer would need to be allocated to live work units and more could be allocated towards public. So that's the gist of what I know. I don't know that he's planning on bringing it back to the DRB at this point because I don't think that the plan has changed materially from what he proposed. Connor, anything to add, or is that?
No, I mean,
basically
just, yeah, that's where the plan sits right now.
Okay, great, thank you.
We did find out that it was in the plan, but they hadn't decided on it, that the senior apartment on Knowles is putting in solar. So they will be putting in solar panels on the roof. And so that's,
Great.
I think that's going to be our first commercial property with solar panels.
Mhm.
Pretty sure.
For sure. But
So-
if I can make a plug for the March Around the Town Journal for people who just haven't read it yet, it came to your mailboxes last week. Not to the extent of the detail that we had on this one for the flats, Nate, but the DRB did an update on all the projects that are there. It's
Yeah.
on the town's website. So if anybody's interested in what else is going on around the town development wise, or a deeper discussion about Thrive, the pedestrian safety, this is just a cheap plug that
You read your journal?
the Around Town Journal has a lot of that jam-packed into the March edition.
I will go pull mine out of recycling.
Well, if it had grease on it though, it could have gone into compost.
Fair enough.
Do you want to
Okay,
do the compost crew update?
I mean, real briefly, I've heard that,
I was joking.
no, really brief, honestly, because we did a plug in the journal about compost crew and we're trying to push that. And I'm getting an email that there's already a couple more households that have signed up as a direct, directly after the journal went out. So I want to do another update next month, right? I want to talk to the folks at Compost Crew and see where the numbers are. But again, a plug, if people want to know more, there's several of us on the council that are doing it, myself included. I think it's great, but it actually really does reduce the waste that's going into our garbage, right? I mean, I've got a family of 6, right? So we have a fairly large tote and, we fill up, I don't know, I hate to say, I don't know if this is good or bad, right? Maybe 30 pounds of waste when you think about all the cores of apples and watermelons and other things that we put into it. So, but the journal works. You just got to read it.
Well, I'll make a plug for the directory because we're going to do a new directory this year. And so we have the little door hangers. So I'd love to get some volunteers to take those around next month when it gets a little warmer to drop those around as a reminder for people to sign up and get their information. And they can do that now. You can go online and do it. So that's also in the journal. So that information. All right, council, I don't want anybody cut off. You guys all done? Everybody's got everything they want to report? Super. Great. Thank you very much. All right, let's go down to, I assume we don't see Megan's name, so I guess we're going to skip that for this evening.
Yes.
Let's go to number 1, Matt from the town manager and staff.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge that the Ethics Committee, Commission met on Thursday, February 25th to review the town's financial disclosure forms. Jack Gaffey's on the call. He is the chair of the Ethics Commission, if he wants to comment on that at all.
Yes, we reviewed the financial disclosure forms. They were all approved, no problems. Everything was good.
Thank you, Jack. And thank you to the rest of your committee. Okay, we've already done 2.
Took care of noise. The Pepco rate case before the Public Service Commission, rate case 9655. We were advised by further down in the agenda, resolution 05-2021, Brian Green, who will be our legal advisor on this case, submitted testimony on behalf of Scott Watson. It is in the packets to review. That was on Thursday, March 4th. Quick update, we have the RFP ready for the Town Hall portico repairs. We hope to get that out on eMaryland Marketplace either tomorrow or Wednesday, and we'll have a bid for the council to approve at the April council meeting. And that's it for now. So.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, Susan, do you have anything? Okay. Oh, I would let the council know that the MML conference this summer because they're doing a virtual and an in-person. In-person is maxed at 400. So right now, each municipality can bring up to 2 people. There is a cutoff date. If after that date, they will open it up to first come, first serve. So I know I've already signed up for it. So there's one more slot for the town. So if you're interested, let Susan know. Otherwise, I'm sure they won't fill the 400. So, but I am gonna go to the in-person in June. So. But the virtual one is also available, and that is, I believe it's not at the same time. It'll be, I think, a couple of weeks later. Okay, all right. Public appearances. If anyone has anything to say that's not on the agenda, this is your opportunity. So don't wait too long because I'll move on. Joe, is that your hand up?
Well, it's going to be Mayor Furman. Thank you.
Okay, gotta get yourself in a comfy
Just
chair.
moving around here. Yes, indeed.
Okay, go ahead.
Just very briefly, I thought
Sure.
before we get too far away from the winter weather, I think we should just keep in mind or acknowledge the fine work that the town crew has done this winter, especially this past month. We had a number of weird kind of snowstorms, ice storms in February, and I think the crew did a fine job in keeping up and keeping ahead of that. So just kudos from me for a fine work by the town crew.
I will pass that on to them. Thank you.
Could and just briefly, can you give me an update about where we stand on the Monday yard waste pickups? Sometimes they're not on Mondays, sometimes they're late on Mondays. Do you know where things stand with that? It's a very minor question, but nonetheless curious.
Okay. Matt, I know you've talked to ecology, so I'll let you answer that question.
Sure. They are having some issues, COVID-related issues with staffing. which has caused issues not only with their CDL drivers to have temporary drivers, but temporary members all over. They have pushed those drivers towards the brush collections to kind of keep a consistency with trash. I know Nate had another issue today. We had a number issues today with the brush collection. So we're just advising residents to keep it out, and then we'll send the truck back out in the morning. But again, they're having some COVID related issues, and we continue to work with them and hope to get through it soon. So.
Yeah, the drivers aren't somebody you can just pull off, as a sub. They have to have the right licensing to drive those trucks. So a CDL license. So they're not necessarily, easy to get when, and somebody has to quarantine for, 2 weeks or 10 days. And so.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. It's not a complaint. It's just a question. And
Right.
For clarification purposes, I didn't realize there have been other issues elsewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been mostly with the brush. We've had a couple issues with regular trash collection. Recycling's been pretty good. It's mostly been with the brush collections on Mondays. So.
Well, frankly, recycling can be a little sloppy, leaving some stuff that they should be having on the truck, leaving on the street. But thank you, Mayor Furman. That's all
You're
I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to bring something up that's not on the agenda? I'm not seeing anybody, so we will move on. Okay, ordinance, resolutions, and regulations.
Mayor and Council, ordinance number O-01-2021 is before you to vote on this evening. The public hearing was held Monday, February 8th, last month. We kept the record open to this past Friday at 4 p.m. We received no additional comments. And at the request of council at the last meeting, we reinstated an oath. The oath is slightly different than what was previously there. It's the oath that we used for the 2020 town election. It is highlighted in your agenda packets.
All right, the public hearing is closed, so we're not taking any further comment. So this is the opportunity for the council to have a motion. Make a motion.
Darren, do the honors.
All right, I will make a motion to approve ordinance number O-01-2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor say aye or hold your hands up.
Aye.
See them?
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay. Number 2, the introduction.
Okay, this is introduction of ordinance number O-02-2021. This is an ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Kensington introducing fiscal year 2021-2022 budget. We need to set the public hearing for our April meeting. And public comment will be taken at that time, along with, we'll provide the manager's letter prior to the next council meeting and additional information besides the detail which was provided in the packet tonight.
Okay, so we need a motion for this.
I move that we introduce ordinance 0-02-2021, ordinance of the mayor of the council to introduce the fiscal year budget, and that the public hearing be scheduled for Monday, April 12th at 7 p.m.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, let's see hand.
Aye.
Okay, very good. All right, number 3.
Okay, Mayor and Council, resolution number R-02-2021 is a resolution of the mayor and town council in support of the driveway variance at 10311 Summit Avenue. We granted the variance at our February council meeting, and this is the formal resolution for the applicant so they can proceed.
Okay, we need a motion.
I'll move to adopt resolution R-02-2021 to approve the variance for 10311 Summit Avenue.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ann?
Aye.
Okay, thank
Aye.
you, Matt. All right, number 4.
Okay, Mayor and Council Resolution number R-03-2021 is a resolution to confirm the mayor's appointments to the Board of Supervisors of Elections. This includes Spencer Harrell, Martha Deal, and Jenny Smith.
Okay. Alrighty. Need a motion?
I move that we adopt resolution R-03-2021, a resolution confirming appointments made by the mayor to the Board of Supervisors of Elections.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Raise
Aye.
your hands. Okay. All right, number 5.
Resolution number R-04-2021 is a resolution of the mayor of the town council to confirm the mayor's appointments to the Town Ethics Commission. This is to reappoint Tina Sherman and Dave Bodett. Jack Gaffey's term runs through next year.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make a
Move to
motion.
adopt. Oh, you're doing it. Go, Darren, you go.
No, go ahead, Nate. It's your turn.
You go next. Okay. I'll move to adopt resolution R-04-2021 to approve the Ethics Commission appointments
Okay, is there a
of Tina
second?
Sherman and Dave Bodett.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? See hands. Come on.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And number 6.
Resolution number R-05-2021 is a resolution of the mayor and town council authorizing the ratification of a contract with Brian Green of Green and Herlacher for legal services. This is related to the Pepco rate case. Mr. Green will be representing us within the testimony. As we already stated, he provided the testimony to us on behalf of Scott Watson. There is a contract provided to you with the resolution of the services.
Okay, is there any questions about this already? Otherwise, I need a motion.
The only question, the current ceiling limit on this. Matt, do we need that in the resolution?
So it is my understanding that it's $5,000. Brian Green is aware of that number as well. It's not written to the specific contract. Sue Ellen was aware of the ceiling as well. So what we could do is if
Can we amend the resolution?
we can amend the resolution, or I could just, stop if it gets to a point on the invoices. Either's fine.
I'd prefer to put it in there with the understanding that if it has to be amended to go above that, it could come back before the council.
So then I'd move that we amend resolution number R-05-2021 to include a limit, an expenditure limit of $5,000, and that anything in excess of that needs to come back before the council.
Okay,
And approve on those amendments? Or do we have to have another, does it have to come back to us as amended?
no, I
No,
think we
you
can amend
can,
it.
yeah, move as amended.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
is there a second?
I second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all right, just 2 quick things. I don't want to hold up the variance for Kensington Parkway, but the fact that Megan said she would join us, I wish she had sent some sort of message saying, do this without me. So I don't really want to do it without, in case something has changed for some reason. So, they can bring this back in April. And if she, doesn't want to attend, that's fine. But the fact that, the owners haven't, aren't on the call either. So I feel like somebody from the property should be.
Well, quite honestly, I was going to have a few questions. So the fact that they're not here, I will send those questions before April so that they can be prepared, but I would have had questions this evening anyways.
Okay, yeah, I'm just not comfortable doing it without them. So,
And
and
the other
also,
thing, Chrissy,
go ahead.
the only
Darren.
thing I would suggest, and I can sort of see who's on this call, and I imagine I know the answer to it, but I mean, if somebody came here to talk about this variance, I'd be happy to hear what they have to say.
Sure.
And to the extent we want to clean up and ask, Connor can ask questions and the rest of us can ask questions at the next meeting, that's fine too. I just, if somebody sat through this whole meeting, I'm happy to hear what they have to say.
Okay.
If not, we can move on.
Well, I only see one person. John is on, Jack, and a Julie. I'm not sure who Julie is. That Julie O'Malley or another Julie? Don't know. Okay.
O'Malley.
It is Julie O'Malley. Okay. Okay. So I don't know if was anybody on this call specifically for the Kensington Parkway house. Okay. So we will do this at the next meeting then, so that any questions could be answered. The other thing, and I know we've already set the hearing date for the 12th. I know Nate, you've said you would be coming back from a trip on the 12th and wouldn't be available. It is the hearing for the budget. We can look at another date if you want to be there, but I don't want to make a decision tonight since Bridget's not here. I wouldn't want to say, oh, well, let's do it on the 13th and then she can't make it. So I think we will talk amongst ourselves. I mean, would you like to be at the budget hearing if possible?
Oh, absolutely. But, please don't bend over backwards to change it just for me, but I'd appreciate it if everyone's willing.
Okay.
The only thing I'd add then, Tracy, is on the ordinance that we passed tonight to keep the public hearing open. Do we want to keep the public hearing open until Monday the 12th at 7? Or do we want to, since we don't know if we're going left or right of that date?
Well, you mean keep it on that date?
No, just keeping the public record open. If we're gonna have the hearing could end up being, it could be later, it could be the 14th.
Well, there's no public hearing. We've introduced it, but then we'll hold it open till the following, because we want to prove.
Yeah, sorry, I'm saying public record. I mean the public hearing. So we've said in the ordinance that it's going to be the 12th.
And that's fine. I mean, we can revise the meeting date. I don't think we need to. I mean, you're asking to go back and amend it?
Yeah, I just don't know if we need to. That's my question, so that it's properly noticed.
Well, I mean, if
Matt.
there was some emergency and we had to cancel it and reschedule, I mean, that happens.
Okay. Yep.
So I'm not too worried about that.
Yeah, so if we end up changing the council meeting from the 12th to another date in April, we'll move the public hearing with it in any public information we put out. So
I just want to make sure that Bridget's going to be there on the 12th. I have not talked to her about that. So we would not, if she and Nate are both not here, we would not even be having a meeting. So I think it's important to find out, whether she has any plans to travel over the holiday as well. So the spring break holiday. And then we can go from there. But I think with plenty of notice about a date change, we'll be fine. Okay.
Thank you.
So anything else? It's only 8:45. Did you
Can
have
I
other?
ask a question?
Sure.
This is Julie O'Malley. My Zoom dropped out right when we were discussing the additional units in your backyard.
ADUs, yeah.
ADUs?
Yes. And there's one on Carroll Place.
Yes, the one behind Steve Cohen.
Yeah, it seems really large. Did we limit this? Are we going to limit the lot coverage of the buildings?
So
Julie, one of the things that we've sort of started informally looking at is what have other municipalities done? And so I've started a list of their restrictions, and we are going to refer this to probably to the DBR committee,
Okay.
even though it's not perfectly within their purview, for just development, and then bring back to the council for review. So yes, I mean, I think a lot of us are uncomfortable with the introduction of new living units in Kensington without being more thoughtful about it.
Yeah, and this isn't I thought it was a detached accessory dwelling units, but it's actually attached to the home. So I know there's some concerns as well that, it could hurt somebody's remodeling, but I think it's still worth looking at, an attached dwelling unit versus a detached. So,
I mean, my personal view we have to, I mean, these are, private property rights of people who own land, and, we all live in the R60 zone, so we should be subject to, most of us, to those restrictions. But we should consider what restrictions are appropriate that might apply to ADUs as distinct from, for example, garages. I think we want to let people build garages out back. I think we want to let people build additions to their homes subject to the current regulations. And so I think the task here is going to be, is there something unique about ADUs that warrants a specific regulation as to size or placement or function? So it's clearly on our radar. Steve brought it up last month. We've looked at it from the ZTA and what other municipalities are doing, and we just need to get that out there in the public domain.
Thank you.
Good. All right. Well, I think our meeting is done, so we need a motion to adjourn.
Well, I will note that we are ending exceptionally early, and it just happens that Bridget wasn't here.
I did mention that to her. I thought it was ironic that she had to miss a night where we were pretty sure we would have a shorter meeting. So,
or it might be that correlation is causation. So anyway, I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
okay. All those in favor of ending early? All right. Thank you very much. You all have a good
Thank
evening.
you.
And we
Thank you
will
all.
Bye,
see you
everybody.
around
Have a
town.
good rest of the week.
Okay. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.